Hello, friends, and welcome. I'm so grateful that you're here. Today, we're talking with someone whose story is a powerful reminder that our hardest times in life don't have to define us. In fact, they can refine us. Ashley, I'm so grateful that you're here. Welcome.
Thanks for having me,
This is
Devin.
really exciting. We're starting a new podcast series, and this is very, very exciting for me. So, what if the worst day of your life ended up being the reason that your life had meaning and purpose? And that's really what we're going to hear about. Ashley survived a horrific car accident, and that nearly ended her life. You have died?
Probably,
Yeah. And
but I didn't.
she didn't. But most people would have understood if you spent the rest of your life defined by that tragedy.
Correct.
And that's not what happened. In fact, you have multiple thriving yoga studios. This is where I go. I love the energy here.
Thank
I
you.
love your energy. And I have to say, from the moment that I walked in the door here, just very randomly having moved to this area, I was told that this was the place to go,
That's like my dream, my goal. Yeah.
right? And you're so beautiful. I would have never known. In fact, I didn't even notice the plaque on the wall that said your story.
Yeah.
And she uses a word that I absolutely love, unbreakable, right? It's
Yes.
such an amazing word. How did you come up with that word?
Well, funny story. I didn't. Not at all. We were going to call it nuts and bolts yoga because the titanium represents the titanium in my body, but nuts and bolts yoga didn't really go so hot. And my best girlfriend was like, "What about titanium yoga?" And it just stuck. And then the tagline became unbreakable because I wanted a place that wasn't rehab or where you could heal from the inside out naturally.
That's such a wonderful concept,
Thank
that
you.
inside out. Yeah, I have so many questions. But what I'm thinking about is how what you went through can help so many other people. Because I hear from so many people all the time who are saying that they're in the thick of it,
Mm-hmm.
and they've either, lost someone that they love, or they've lost a marriage, or a business failed. You almost lost your life.
Mm-hmm.
And this is really, really crazy. We can see where you are today,
Yes.
but I want to hear about the day that changed your life forever. But before we do that, I want you to tell our guests what your life was like before.
Before I was 30 when this all happened. So prior to um, the car accident, I was always playing sports. I was always very active and I loved working out, never doing yoga. I did not like yoga. I had only tried it like once. But I was super active, like social life and working. My mom instilled like an amazing work ethic in me. And so that was like my path. I was going to work. My goal was never to be a stay at home mom. I would really suck at that. And I love to travel and I traveled a ton for work. So that was
Wait,
super.
so you grew up in Arizona, I think, and then you ended up moving to New York, and you worked in the fashion industry, I think, for Burberry.
Correct. So I graduated college in 2008 and I moved directly to New York. I had a background, or what I studied in college was business and retail. And so I got my dream job. I interned at Burberry, and it was what I thought I wanted to do for the rest of my life. When I was there, I met through interning another lady who she was moving to Chicago to work for a startup in the fashion industry on the menswear side, which I was always in menswear. And I just thought it would be so cool to take a risk. And I think my parents wanted to kill me. But to take a risk and start something from the ground up, something with probably like less rules and less legal documents to sign when you go into a job. And so I left New York and moved to Chicago. I was there, and that job ended up taking me to Dallas,
Okay.
which in Dallas, I worked for a different startup and in the menswear, and it was even smaller. And so I just thought that, I could kind of move up the ladder in a smaller company. And that is basically, I went to work I traveled for all of my jobs. And so I actually was living in Dallas, working for a startup in Dallas, and I was working, it's very random, I was working the spring training baseball circuit here in Florida, in Fort Lauderdale. And that's when the accident happened.
Okay, so you were driving in Florida, and I've heard a lot about
which is so funny that I live in Florida now, because like I didn't at the time, but yeah.
Okay, so you were driving from Lakeland to
I was
Fort Lauderdale,
driving from Fort Lauderdale to Tampa, and I never made it to Tampa.
So what was the last thing you remember?
Well, I own a yoga studio. So the last thing I remember is leaving the team that I was working with in Fort Lauderdale, getting in my car, and you do things really early in the morning before the games start for the day.
Right, sure.
And so, I mean, it's about 9 a.m. is my best guess. And I was hungry because I had been up, for like a few hours at that point. And so the last thing I remember, don't judge me right now, is I stopped at Wendy's along the highway, and I got food. I got a spicy chicken sandwich and French fries and probably a Coke, because I drink a Coke every day. I know I'm going to hell. It's terrible. But so I stopped at Wendy's, and I was like eating the food out of the passenger seat while I'm driving, and that's the last thing I remember.
Literally last thing. And literally, you woke up in the hospital.
I came to.
Wait.
Yes.
So I know this shouldn't matter, but I'm just, you were hit by a Mack truck.
Yeah, like a semi truck.
Do you know how that happened? It came into your lane, or you came into?
It came into, yeah. So the truck came into my lane. But I mean, it's funny. My mom read the police report. Like
wow.
I don't want to.
Yeah.
I have no recollection, and I've been to a lot of therapy. They tried to like pull it out of me, and I've nothing.
Why? Yeah.
And so for me, like, I'm at peace that like I don't know, and I don't want to know.
But you understand you were airlifted.
Yes,
to the hospital.
I do remember coming to in the helicopter, being like, "This is really cool." And I think if that's any perspective of what happened, was I was extremely positive, and I'm not an overly positive person. I was very positive the whole time. Like, I got a really cool airplane ride that, cost my insurance $20,000, or I remember getting the bill.
So you were conscious there.
Yeah, I was in and out. Like, they say I was concussed, but like I remember being in and out, and I obviously was in Florida alone. And the wonderful police officer, so they're like, probably why I'm alive is the stretch of the highway where the accident happened with the semi truck. It is known for a lot of accidents. I guess it's like citrus area. And there was a police radaring a 1/10 of a mile ahead, and he heard it.
Oh my God.
And so that, like, he heard it, and he, I believe it was actually, we had already passed him.
Okay.
And so he knew. And so before he even got to the scene, he called for an air vac, because he knew that if it was, a car and a semi, like, it wasn't going to end well. And he actually, because he didn't know anything, but the nice man, he like got in the helicopter with me, came to the hospital with me, and stayed with me until I went into surgery.
Unbelievable, Ashley.
Good people out there.
So amazing. Yeah. You're so beautiful right now. So you were broken everywhere.
Yeah. So at the hospital, I obviously was alone. It's when like a lot of perspective happened. I remember my surgeon, his name's Dr. Shankman. I'm still great friends with him today because he saved my life. It was called in. So he knew I was coming. And you're just kind of you're in a big white room. I remember coming to a bit, and the police officer was there asking if like, who should he call? And I was like, you should probably call my mom. And so he did, and she obviously got on a plane immediately. And flew out. Oh, I think she thought I was gonna like be in traction, like, with like a cast around the whole body. And so he stayed with me until they wheeled me into surgery. And so I do recall Dr. Shankman, was sitting in a chair before you went into surgery. And he was like, okay, we're going to attempt to fix everything. So my right shoulder, it came out. My right femur came out. And then my left hand was actually crushed. So, and that was by the airbag, just like,
Oh, right,
and
sure.
I don't remember it, but I guess I just like brought it up to my face.
Wow.
So the airbag crushed my left hand. And what I do remember is he asked me, it's like, are you on any medication?
Yes.
Things like that. I'm like, no. But he was like, okay, do you want blood transfusions? And I think that like cemented the severity of it to me. I was like, oh, you're not just going to like stick this back in? And I didn't know what to say. And I said, do you have kids? He goes, yeah, I have 2 girls. And I was like, do whatever you would do to save their life.
That's amazing.
And he did. And then from there, he asked me, do you have a will? And I'm like, I'm 30. I don't need a will. And so it's like that severity just came back of like, oh, this is like a big deal. So they did take me back to surgery, and due to how long it took, they only did my shoulder and my femur. And so the wrapping in of titanium is I have a rod that's nailed and screwed in from shoulder to elbow and from hip to knee. So yeah.
And so did you wake up and your mom was there?
I did. So I don't,
and she was living in Arizona.
She was living in Arizona, but she was actually, I believe, going to a girls' weekend in Idaho. So she found out when she landed, like timing is everything. She landed in Idaho and she hopped on, just kept coming to Florida. As a mom, like, no. But I remember my mom, I'm loud, but my mom is very loud. And I swear, I don't know, maybe I was hallucinating, but I remember her like walking down the hallway.
You could hear.
Yeah. And I think it was a sigh of relief, just a sigh of relief that like,
she could see you.
Yeah. And then shortly after, I believe the next day, my sister came, my dad came, my grandpa came, everyone. And we all shared a really lovely hospital room in Lakeland, Florida for, days.
Did they put you in a coma at all?
No, apparently I was concussed, but like, no, I was pretty with it. I was also on a lot of painkillers.
Okay.
So I had hallucinations that like my grandma was a balloon, like
crazy stuff.
Wild things on opioids.
Do you have any memories of feeling like I'm not going to make it, or this like strength from within? Like walk me through a little bit. Like you were definitely not in your right mind, right. But the fact that you said you were so positive, you were there on a helicopter on your way to the hospital, and you're talking about what a great helicopter it is. Like that's amazing, Ashley.
Talking to Dr. Shankman when he just said like, do you want blood transfusions, which I had to have multiple, and do you have a will, like that, just like, oh, this is serious. But then they could not fix my hand in that first surgery. And that's when I think things started to set in. So they wanted to get a hand surgeon to fix my hand.
Are you left-handed or right-handed?
I'm right-handed, thank God. And so they wanted to get a hand surgeon. Essentially, they couldn't. So day 5, which every single day they think they're getting a hand surgeon. So you can't eat because you're going into surgery.
Oh, wow.
And so my dad is an avid gum chewer. I am also. But my dad always had like really fun, fruity flavored gum. And that's like what I would eat for days while I'm waiting for the hand surgeon. And finally, the hand was like, think about just like the color of a purple grape. And it was just huge. And it was so painful that I had to act like, you have to do this. I'm in so much pain. Like this stuff didn't hurt as much as this hand.
And there's so many bones, I guess.
Like, who knows? And so he was like, you know what? I was able to find a child size. I have a plate in my hand. I was able to find a child size plate. Let's go and let's use that. And that's where I think the scarcity began of the first time I was pretty out of it. Now this when it came to hand surgery, I was with it. I was on a lot of drugs.
Yeah.
But it's like, and so it scared me more.
Yeah.
And my mom and dad, they, sat outside the operating room, and I specifically remember when I came out of the hand surgery, I was screaming bloody murder.
Ugh,
like it
God.
was awful. The hand was the worst. So painful. And then I stayed after the hand surgery. I said, get me out of here. Like, I am so done being here. And if you've ever been in the hospital,
You got to go home.
You got to go to the bathroom before you're allowed to go home. And so I just said, I want to go home. This is not what I want to do. Have you ever seen the show Friends?
Yes.
So there's the episode where Rachel has her baby.
Okay.
And there's a revolving door of like new roommates that all go have their baby. And that was me in the hospital. Like, a roommate would come, a roommate would leave, a roommate would come, a roommate would leave. I was like, at least I want the window view.
Yes.
And I was in the trauma ICU, which there's I was at least with it. The rest of me was a mess, but
your brain
mentally,
was okay.
Mentally it was
okay.
really hard to be with people that are like fully out of control.
Wow. Scary.
So I was like, let's go home.
Did you have any PTSD or anything that that is there from the memory?
Nothing.
Okay.
No. I mean, I don't really want to go to a hospital anytime soon.
No. Have you been to a hospital since?
Yes. I had to think about that.
Yeah,
when I had my son.
Yeah.
But, that's like a happy visit.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Yeah, but that's it. And at least it was a different hospital.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't the same one.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So you had the accident, you had the surgeries, you went home. When did, I'm guessing, a dark time
dark time? So I would say once again, I didn't really understand the severity on, like I said, I was on a lot of drugs and to help numb the pain. And when I remember being wheeled out of the hospital, like Dr. Shankman is there and my mom is wheeling me out of the hospital. And that's kind of, I don't know, he didn't give me like a care packet or anything, but more, like paperwork. I don't know, here's a bill.
But you were going, where were you going home to?
Dallas.
Okay,
so we were like flying on an airplane.
Wow, okay.
And so I'm in my wheelchair and he's wheeling me out. And I was like, okay.
Right, because you can't use crutches.
No,
So you had the arm, you had the hand, and the shoulder.
The femur, yeah.
Oh my God.
So he's wheeling me out and he was like, you really need to get in some intense therapy for PTSD in case things come back. And you need to have some realizations that you're not going to be active anymore. You may never walk again.
Oh,
and I am spunky. And I said, I'm going to run a marathon in 1 year. And I did not. I don't run. And so I was just determined. And I was very lucky where Dr. Shankman's, his best friend in medical school, lived in Dallas and was an orthopedic surgeon. And so he set me up with his best friend.
Okay.
And so I knew I was going to be taken care of. And I also had his phone number, like, who does that? And so he was like, you call me, anytime you want and text me, whatever. And that was that. I left and I didn't really think too much of it. Like, I wanted to get on an airplane and I wanted to go home and I wanted to get this show on the road healing.
So what were you thinking in your mind? Obviously you had this terrible accident, but because I think so much of what, happens in our life is a result of our thoughts, right? Mm-hmm. So if you had said internally, which you're not that type of a person, thank God, right? Listening to the doctor, I may never walk again. I know he's trying to be realistic.
Yeah.
Right. But you could have gone into a deep, dark place and you never did?
No.
Unbelievable, Ashley.
So I will say, I think everything happens for a reason. I have my father and uncles that are all alcoholics. I have a cousin who has a full-blown heroin addiction, and I was taking opioids. And so for me, I was like, I have to get off of these as quickly as possible. And I I was on, disability, and I was doing like family medical leaves because I was at work, and all the things when it happened. And for me, I was just like, well, I want to get better so I can go back to work and I can just move on with my life. Like,
Thinking that you were going to go back to where you were.
Uh-huh. And it was, I remember getting back to Dallas, and such a weird idea, but my plan was to send everyone home, and I can do this alone, and to move into basically assisted living because I couldn't reach, I couldn't shower, I couldn't do anything.
Open a bottle
No,
cup,
nothing.
he said.
So that was kind of.
How long was that?
I didn't end up going because I wasn't bad enough to go. I was like, how?
They didn't let you go to the assisted living.
Because I wasn't bad enough. And so that I would
and
say
insurance wasn't going to pay for
right,
it.
right.
So what did you do?
So I had to do physical therapy, which I had sent everyone home, and I'm a giant pain in the butt. So I got.
But you want to do everything on your own.
Right. Yeah. And so I ended up getting Ubers, and I would wheel outside in my Uber, and the nice people would like put the wheelchair and I would go to physical therapy, and I didn't have a job. And so I was fired from my job. And so my husband now, he was like, your full-time job is rehabilitating your body. And I didn't have anything else.
You were seeing your husband at the time
yeah, we
as
were
a
dating.
boyfriend.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And so he was like, this is your full-time job. Your full-time job is to go to physical therapy, is to go to occupational therapy. And I had gone to chiropractic care in the past because I had migraines. I went back to that. I started cupping therapy. I started acupuncture, but like anything and everything that might help, I tried, because it could alleviate pain, get me off of opioids, and what if it's a miracle?
Right. But nothing was working.
Nothing, like, everything's very slow, but from the time I would wake up in the morning until the time I would go to sleep, I would be doing the physical therapy exercises that they gave me. And essentially what happened was my insurance ran out. They were like, you have maxed out on all the visits, all the things. And so I ended up just paying out of pocket for everything. And that's when we actually had to come to Florida for a wedding. We come to Florida for a wedding in like South Florida. It was on the beach. No better place to have a wheelchair than on the beach.
Oh my God, you're still in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
How many months later?
I think it was 6 months. And I went back to see Dr. Shankman. And I was just like, I'm doing everything they tell me. I am like, I'm eating right. I'm, not having Wendy's, all the things. But it's like, my leg was so atrophied. Like, it was so tiny, and there was just no muscle. And I was like, what do I do? And when we were at the appointment, he did get me up, and he, to like bear weight, which was just horribly painful. And my right foot, your left one's straight, my right one was like this. And so I did this awkward shuffle. Wow. It was really ugly. And so once they could figure out that I could bear weight, he's like, you just got to keep going. You got to keep trying. And then at that point was like, he's like, I read a Harvard study that yoga can really help with pain. Okay. And I'm going to sign you up for a class in Dallas. I found a studio that has hot yoga. I'm going to sign you up for your first class. When you get home, you're going to go. Okay. And I went to, it's a giant chain called Core Power Yoga. It was on the second floor of a building with a step walking into it. It could be like it was the most like unattainable place to get into. No wheelchair. Yeah, they're like, here's 70 waivers. And I was like, I just want to sit in your hot room. And I sat in their hottest class, which would be like a titanium class. I remember it was 96 degrees. I sit in the class in my wheelchair. I do nothing. I just sit there and sweat. And I felt no pain. Unbelievable. And that's when the light bulb went off, and I went multiple times a day because it took the pain away.
So, okay, so you got rid of the pain.
Yeah.
But,
and I could stop taking the opioids.
Okay. That was your biggest thing. That's, yeah, it's just terrible.
Yeah.
Messes up your
Everything.
digestion, everything.
Everything.
Wow, this is really, what an amazing story. So if you're just new here to my channel, we are talking to Ashley Hanna today, and what an incredible story. You know, she nearly died. I mean, that was just so powerful. The whole thing, I really wanted to hear what happened. But not only did you not die, you now have this thriving business. And did you realize, and that's what I want to get into now. When did you realize that this was not just a story of recovery, that this was the beginning of something very new in your life, and that this ultimately was part of your purpose?
1,000%. So once this once I started experiencing yoga, and it healed me. I was pretty unhealable, I feel like. So it took me 6 weeks of yoga, of just sitting, to go from a wheelchair to a walker, and then another 6 weeks for a wheelchair to a cane. And granted, I'd just been sitting in a wheelchair doing my PT. And then after a cane, I was free. And
So you could walk with a cane.
Yeah. And then eventually that went away. I still have my cane. It lives in my guest bedroom because I have like a weird,
Yeah.
I can't get rid of, if I get rid of it, something bad will happen. So it sits in there in case anyone needs it.
We need the cane.
But you know, it was kind of the light bulb moment for me, was like, this helped me. And like, I wasn't the kind to like yoga. I'd done one class at the YMCA. It was horrible. And I was just, it was a light bulb moment. I always knew, like, some people know big things in their life, and like mine was like, I know that I'm going to start a company, but I just assumed it was going to be in the fashion industry because that's what my degree was in and my background. And I remember I was at dinner with my husband, and he was like, so what are you going to do now? And I said, I want to do any job where I can wear yoga pants. And he was like, well, you should figure that out. And I was like, well, I kind of did. I'm going to go to Nicaragua, and I'm going to go do my yoga teacher training, and I'm going to open a yoga studio. And he's very supportive of anything. His name is Brett. And I don't know why he was like, you should do that. But he was like, you should. And we're going to move to Florida. So you should do it there. And I went on Google and I typed in 32082 yoga studio, and there wasn't one. And so it was just kind of all the stars aligned.
You feel something bigger was forming.
Yeah. And I was petrifying and all of the things, but it all came together. Like, I went to Nicaragua. I did my yoga teacher training. I got back. We ended up moving here. I was walking on the beach with my dogs, and I met this nice man named Bob, and he goes, I hear you're wanting to open a yoga studio. I have a building for sale. Do you want to come look at it? I was like, yeah. And it's just like, it all worked out. And
were you like visualizing this in your head, or did, like, because I read something earlier today about, and I can see that you're getting a little bit emotional. It's such a powerful story, but like, when we create something and build a business, really it's our lives that are creating this story, and it's based on your experiences, and so therefore there's a purpose and a meaning, a higher meaning and impact. Do you have a strong faith, or where did all of this come from?
It's a good question, because like I said, I'm not an overly positive person, and
I
don't think so.
I'm hearing nothing but positivity.
But it's just like, I kind of, the accident made me figure out my life for me versus someone else figuring it out, like a boss, or like, this was a pivotal moment where I could have just kept getting unemployment, and I could have kept taking opioids and lived a miserable existence, or
blaming somebody else.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
You're the victim.
Blaming a truck driver.
Yeah, that's your identity.
Yeah. Or I could make something of this, and I just, whatever I do, I definitely, my family addiction is I just go full force into everything. So
I
it's
love
like,
it.
we're going to do
You're
this.
so lucky that you have that. I mean, what I'm thinking about right now, because this is really the theme, and it's something that I went through in my life. And I remember being in that dark place of so many things that fell apart.
Yeah.
And my identity at the time was tied to the things in my life, right? And but I remember thinking, I can't live here. It's a terrible existence, right? And I knew that I needed to go forward, but I was terrified.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to do it. So it was like a baby step. It was like one foot in front of the other, right? I feel like for those of us who have overcome something very, very serious in life, it's the desire to, you want to recover more than you want to play the victim.
Yes.
But
you have to choose at the end of the day, like, which one are you going to be? I don't think there's a middle ground.
No. But how do you how you didn't have any fears? It sounds like you're just fearless.
Well, I'm just glad it happened when I was young, because if it happened now, I'd be like, I'm just going to lay in bed.
Your husband and because I also see now that in this community, you're involved in a lot of different nonprofits, it looks like, and you help other women, and so that's just in your blood. I mean, what would you say to someone who it isn't in their blood, that they're in that dark place and they want that you're inspiring them? First of all, thank you so much. But what would you say to them? They're terrified of taking the next step. What if it doesn't work out? Like, I have my unemployment and my disability, right? I can go get licensed to become a yoga instructor, but now I'm not going to have that income anymore. And what if the yoga studio doesn't work out?
Right.
Like that in between, that fearful place. Like, what would you say to them?
What brings you joy? Like, and it could be a minute of joy, or it could be, but like, what brings you joy? I'm looking at your drink and there's a lemon in it. So, it's like, boy, I like lemons, make homemade lemonade. I don't know. But it's like just finding that one thing in a day that brings you joy and see what you can do with it.
And is it, because I also, what's coming to me is like identity, right? Like, you thankfully had a family and you had seen a lot of troubles and adversity and people suffering from drug addiction. I've seen that too, and alcoholism.
Yeah.
I think it's in everyone's family, right? And so we're lucky in a way that we've seen that. But it's just, just making that decision and choosing to have an identity.
Yeah.
Right. That, because you could have very easily had that victim identity, but you didn't. You said, I want to go forward. I want joy. You had someone in your life, but I think it is just making that decision in your head that you can't live that way.
Right. And I think for me, the identity was, it's my normal life. I have to keep moving. My identity is probably just to keep going, because I was so afraid that it might come back, those memories or that PTSD or that trauma. So if I keep moving forward, and I keep helping myself or, my body, my whatever, that
doing the next right thing.
Yeah, it will get better. And then for me, it's so funny. I remember opening day, we opened here at like 5 o'clock, I think. And I was like, no one's ever going to come here. This is crazy. And we had a lady come in at noon. She's like, I'm ready. So we don't open for 5 more hours.
Oh my God.
But it was like, it gave me hope. And I will say, like, my goal, it used to be like, my goal of this was to help one person. And and just to make them feel more comfortable in their own skin, whether it be they need a hip replacement or they have low back pain like I have, but it's just to help one person. And that's the amazing part of 8 years in, all the people that we've helped, and hearing that, like, you changed my life, which to me is insane. But there's a place that's done it, and we try to do things more naturally. So yeah,
you're really inspiring me today.
Well, thank you.
Ashley, you're beautiful on the inside and the outside. I'm so grateful that I found this studio, right, and that I met you, because it's true, and it's making me feel emotional too, because in that deep dark time, it's just, It's so easy. And if you're in that right now, it's so easy to just say, it could never get better for me, right? It could never get better for me. And it can, right? Because that's the one thing about life is that it's always changing.
And it's your decision what you're going to do with it.
Right. And you just put that one foot in front of the other and you're like, nothing's going to hold me back. I'm unbreakable. What are some of the other slogans back there?
Oh, I know all the words on the wall.
Unstoppable, unbreakable.
They all have uns.
Yeah.
Untamable. Yeah.
I love it. And I have to say, like, I never really liked yoga when I was growing up because I was more of an athlete too. And I thought, oh, you think of old people stretching. I get such a workout here. I'm just dripping wet. And now with the weights, and it feels a little bit like all of these other practices coming together. But with yoga, the stretching and the stretching of your body, the stretching of your mind, the whole meditation and breathing part of it is just so good because I think of, I don't know about you, but in the last 8 years for me, and that's the same time frame that has happened to me when I went through my troubles, is that the world is so different now with this constant, dopamine hit on our phones, on TikTok and everything else. And we love it. We love being on social media. But when I come here for 45 minutes or an hour, I know that I'm going to do the things that are good for me and good for my body. And I'm going to fill up my oxygen tank first so that I can help others around me.
Right.
But I just love it here and I love you. And I'm so grateful and thankful that you shared your story. And any other words of wisdom, anything else you can think of that you would share with anyone that did you do a lot of reading when you were in the hospital, or did you just do a lot of like contemplating?
That's a good question. I would say when I was like recovering and doing physical therapy at home, I was definitely like, I don't know if podcasts were a thing then, but I do remember, I feel like it was like books on tape, like while I'm like doing my physical therapy on a wall, because everything was on a wall. And I like super dorky books. Like I like books about business and like just people that inspire me. Yeah. Those are my favorite things to read because I always think about if I can read this book or listen to this audiobook, book on tape at the time, and I get an idea from it. It's, worth its weight in gold. And so I like those.
Yeah. And
which are not page turns.
I love it. And that's what we're trying to do here is create this community of people. I have a feeling it's going to be mostly women, but men and women who are just sharing their experiences and trying to become the best version of themselves and using their own experiences, especially the dark times, the adversity, to help others get through it and put one foot in front of the other. Because it's very easy to go down that path of darkness. And so I'm just so grateful that you didn't. I'm so grateful that we had a chance to talk today.
Thank God, me too.
Thank you.
Yay. No, thank you.